Candace Owens has been investigating the past of Erika Kirk and has uncovered strange connections to child trafficking. Erika began the Romanian Angels Project with Colonel Otto Busher, who was later accused of child trafficking out of a Romanian military base. It has also been uncovered that Erika had a series of tweets with an underage girl. These are very disturbing conversations. Why would Erika send a message to an underage girl saying she's going to touch her butt? It also turns out that she set up a photo shoot for her. Why would Erika Kirk set up a photo shoot for a minor? This raises questions about whether Erika Kirk should be the CEO of Turning Point. But there is something that Candace Owens has missed. You don't have to go all the way to Romania to find connections between Turning Point and child trafficking. You can look right in their home state of Arizona. Get ready, because this story gets pretty wild. Let's go back to the day Charlie Kirk was murdered. I have talked previously about the IT guy, Terrell Farnsworth. He is the person who removed the SD cards with the footage of the murder. He filmed a bizarre selfie video, and when Candace Owens called him to ask questions, he lied to her. Why is Terrell Farnsworth lying if he has nothing to hide? But something else about this has been bothering me. Do you know how something will just nag at you? Something has been nagging at the back of my mind about this whole situation. Let me show you the video in the tunnel right after the shooting. This is just after they carried Charlie Kirk's body through the tunnel.
Amy, go!
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Oh my God!
Oh my gosh!
Let me rewind that. This is where Terrell Farnsworth was standing. This is what bothers me. Why did he climb up here? Everyone around him is ducking their heads and running for their lives. And Terrell Farnsworth climbs up on a raised area that is completely exposed. Why does he do that? If I was in the middle of an active shooting, I would not climb up onto a hilltop where I'm completely exposed. It's almost like he's looking down and monitoring what everyone is doing. It looks to me like someone who is managing a scenario. I think a lot of people have discounted Terrell's potential involvement in all of this because people think, oh, he's just the IT guy. We have to consider the possibility that maybe Terrell Farnsworth is one of the people running the operation. If you've been following my investigation, I've discussed several members of the Farnsworth family. We have Terrell Farnsworth. We also have Dwayne Farnsworth. He's been in business deals with Jake Hoffman and Tyler Boyer. We have also talked about David Farnsworth, who is an Arizona state senator. We now need to add another Farnsworth family member, Eddie Farnsworth. He is a very powerful person in Arizona. He served in both the Arizona House and Senate. He retired in 2021 after serving 2 decades in political office with only a brief break between 2009 and 2011. The Farnsworth family is big and confusing, and I'm not sure I have all of this correct, but this is my understanding. David Farnsworth is the cousin of Eddie Farnsworth, who is the cousin of Dwayne Farnsworth, who is the father of Terrell Farnsworth. Eddie Farnsworth is best known for the charter school scandal. He owned a charter school. And basically, he continually voted to increase state funding for charter schools at least a dozen times, and the money would go to himself. And he made millions of dollars. I want to be careful because I don't want to make fun of charter schools. I believe charter schools are important. Arizona has done some amazing things for school choice. Parents in Arizona have lots of choices to send their children to public school, private school, charter school, or homeschool without serious financial hardship. Those are incredible reforms, and we should acknowledge that. However, if you are a legislator, you should not be voting on something that you are going to financially benefit from. You should recuse yourself from that vote. I don't know what Eddie Farnsworth was thinking, but it certainly seems very shady. But this is actually not his biggest scandal. Eddie Farnsworth blocked a bill against child sex trafficking. This was in 2013. It was House Bill 2569. At that time in Arizona, the laws against sex exploitation of minors between the ages of 15 and 17 was considered different than younger victims. So, if you were caught trafficking minors, as long as they were older than 15, your punishment was not as bad. HB 2569 was attempting to fix this loophole. It basically said that all sexual crimes against minors below the age of consent are treated the same. This was something that everyone agreed on. Democrats wanted this. Republicans wanted this. It was supported by prosecutors, the police, schools, anti-trafficking organizations. Everyone wanted this bill to pass. Eddie Farnsworth killed the bill. He killed the anti-child sex trafficking bill. And you have to understand how this all went down. Eddie Farnsworth was the head of the House Judiciary Committee. Before a bill can be voted on, it has to go through committee first. Normally, you would allow a committee vote. If there was some disagreement about the bill, you would allow debate. Usually, there's an opportunity for members of the public to stand up and provide comment to the committee. Eddie Farnsworth decided, I'm the head of this committee. I'm just going to kill the bill. I'm not going to allow debate. I'm not going to allow a vote. I am just killing the bill. We are not going to address child sex trafficking. This is unbelievable. Why would he do that? What ended up happening was that Cindy McCain, the wife of John McCain, wrote an opinion article in the local newspaper directly calling out Eddie Farnsworth. Keep in mind, this was only 5 years after John McCain ran for president, and his wife writes this: the recent unwillingness of Arizona House Judiciary Chairman Eddie Farnsworth to schedule a hearing for House Bill 2569 shines a direct and disturbing light on the problem of human trafficking in Arizona. By refusing to schedule a hearing, he effectively killed a bill that was a small step, but a step in the right direction of protecting our children from human trafficking. There was public outrage over this. What was even more frustrating is that Eddie Farnsworth would not give any explanation or reason for his decision. He would not respond to questions from the newspaper. Eventually, Eddie Farnsworth was shamed into doing the right thing. A year later, they wrote a different bill that was passed that closed the age loophole for child sex trafficking. I find this situation very disturbing. This is Terrell Farnsworth's family, and it makes me wonder if something more sinister is going on here. Keep all of this in mind because we're going to come back to it. The other thing that has been nagging at the back of my mind is that UPS store mailbox for 110 LLC, operated by Jake Hoffman, where Turning Point is sending millions of dollars. Something just does not seem right about this. If you remember, Turning Point sent me a cease and desist letter where they asked me to stop, asking whether the money sent to 110 LLC was to bribe Jake Hoffman. This request also seems to be very strange. Why are they calling this out specifically as something they don't want people to talk about? No one can talk about Jake Hoffman. Absolutely no questions can be asked about what Jake Hoffman is doing. It just seems very strange. To be fair to Turning Point, they say in their letter, Turning Point contracts with 110 LLC for legitimate services. The money you ask about is spent on marketing and advertising services. Any claim that it is a bribe is false. I don't know if you noticed this, but their response does not really address any of my questions. Why is Turning Point hiring an Arizona state senator as one of their largest contractors to do their marketing? They say it is for marketing, but what exactly is the money being spent on? They could have hired any other marketing company in the United States. Why are they choosing this guy? I've brought up that some of this money is coming from a 501c3, which cannot be used on political activity. So why are they using an Arizona state senator? We are talking about millions and millions of dollars. And after weeks of bringing up these accounting issues, Turning Point still has not answered these questions. By the way, Before this video, I sent questions to Turning Point through their lawyer. As of the time of posting, I've not received responses to any of my questions. So, I've started looking further into Jake Hoffman. Just to give you an idea of the type of person he is, Jake Hoffman was recently pulled over for speeding, and I'm going to show you the body cam footage.
Body cam video shows a state trooper pull over State Senator Jake Hoffman driving a Tesla Cybertruck with the word freedom on the back.
Okay, let me just stop here. He drives a Cybertruck with freedom written on the back. Am I the only person who finds that a little obnoxious? I am all for being patriotic, but that seems kind of annoying.
Pulled over for speeding, picked up at 89, soon at 65.
Senator Hoffman is cooperative. He does not tell the trooper he's a lawmaker or ask for immunity. But the trooper figures that out on his own, and once he does, he lets Hoffman go.
Who's on the state senator? What's that? Yeah, are you in session right now? I'm going to get out of your hair. I'll be right back.
Legislative immunity is written into the state constitution. The goal is to keep the executive branch from abusing its power to arrest a political opponent.
So they just let him go. That is what we're dealing with here. He can just do whatever he wants, and he gets away with it. I don't know if you know about these Cybertrucks. They are built like a missile. If you get hit by one of these cars, you are not surviving. So Jake Hoffman is driving 89 miles per hour in a 65 mile per hour zone. That is 24 miles per hour over the speed limit. He could have killed somebody. He's wildly careening down the freeway, effectively in a missile, and he just gets off scot-free. Now, if any of us normal people were in that situation, they would have thrown the book at us. This is deeply unfair and sets the stage for what I'm going to show you about Jake Hoffman. He moved from California to Arizona in his early teens with his parents, Mike and Lisa. He graduated from Greenway High School in Phoenix. He went to ASU and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Exercise and Wellness. In 2008, he graduates from ASU. From 2008 to 2013, he works in Florence, where he works as a fitness and wellness director for a retirement community. According to property records, he purchased a home in Gilbert in 2010. So at least for a portion of this period, he was commuting an hour to work every day to Florence, which he ended in 2013. From that point onward, Jake Hoffman would make money through various small marketing companies that he would start. From 2013 to 2015, he served on the school board in Gilbert. In 2015, he moved to Queen Creek. From 2017 to 2020, he served on the Queen Creek Town Council.
Hi, I'm Councilman Hoffman. Queen Creek isn't just committed to having great infrastructure. We're also committed to building the safest community in Arizona. That's why the Queen Creek Town Council introduced the start of the Queen Creek Police Department, including the hiring of Chief Bryce.
I want you to remember Police Chief Randy Bryce because he's going to come back in a later interview. From 2021 to 2023, Jake Hoffman served in the Arizona State Legislature representing Queen Creek. From 2023 until now, he serves as an Arizona State Senator representing Queen Creek. Let me show you on the map where all these places are. Here is Phoenix, the main city in Arizona. First, he moved to Florence. This is about an hour outside of Phoenix. Florence has about 25,000 population. It is a really small town. Not only that, it is where several massive prisons are located. There's a state prison, a federal prison, and a private prison. In total, they house around 17,000 prisoners, making it one of the largest prison complexes in the nation. You heard that number correctly. Out of the 25,000 population in Florence, more than half of them are prisoners. So a lot of the people who live in Florence work at the prisons. I think it is interesting that after Jake Hoffman graduates from ASU, this is where he works for 5 years. Now, I don't know if Jake made friends with people at the prisons. We don't know that much about this period of his life. It's just interesting that he goes from being a fitness instructor next to a massive prison and suddenly becomes a massively successful millionaire. Now, I do not want to disparage people who live in Florence. I've met some great people who live in Florence, and there is some really interesting history about the town. I just think it's an interesting coincidence that is where Jake Hoffman gets his start. Then he moves to Gilbert. This is a suburb of Phoenix. Immediately upon relocating to Gilbert, he files to run in the Arizona State House of Representatives. At the time, Gilbert was represented by 3 people: the state senator Andy Biggs and 2 House representatives Warren Peterson and Eddie Farnsworth. This is where they all met in 2012, and you will see that moving forward, these 4 people are thick as thieves. We don't know exactly what conversations happened, but we do know the result. Jake Hoffman dropped out of the race and immediately ran for the school board in Gilbert. That meant that Warren Peterson and Eddie Farnsworth could run unopposed. At the same time, Andy Biggs, Warren Peterson, and Eddie Farnsworth all endorsed Jake Hoffman, who narrowly won the seat on the school board. We see this kind of thing happen in politics all the time. They probably told Jake Hoffman to wait out this race. It was not his time yet, and in exchange, they will help him along his career. And as we follow their careers over the next decade, it becomes a game of musical chairs where they will fill in for the other person as people move up the political ladder. In 2017, Andy Biggs takes the federal position as Arizona representative. Warren Peterson takes his position in the Arizona Senate. Then in 2019, Eddie Farnsworth takes Warren Peterson's old position in the Arizona Senate. Then in 2021, Jake Hoffman takes Warren Peterson's position as Arizona representative. Everyone keeps changing seats, but the same people stay in power. It is also important to understand that this is the origin story of Turning Point. Tyler Boyer graduated from high school in the mid-2000s, and in high school he was close friends with Terrell Farnsworth. We can already see at this time that Terrell's powerful family member, Eddie Farnsworth, was already calling the shots with Jake Hoffman's career in politics. In 2015, Jake Hoffman moves to Queen Creek with just enough time to meet the 1-year residency requirement to run for town council in 2016. This is also a suburb of Phoenix, but it is on the outskirts of the city. Once again, we see that Jake Hoffman's political career was helped by Warren Peterson. Warren Peterson was a wealthy land developer. He operated a company called VIP Homes, and he was developing land in Queen Creek. And he was currently in a lawsuit with Queen Creek and was trying to get the town council to vote on a settlement agreement. He also just happened to sell Jake Hoffman his house. What a coincidence! It turns out that a watchdog group caught on to this and made a commercial about it.
Could Queen Creek taxpayers be on the hook for millions of dollars in a lawsuit brought against the town by VIP Homes? Queen Creek could lose the money in court, or the lawsuit could be settled out of court. In that case, the Queen Creek Town Council would approve a settlement payment to VIP Homes. So with that background, let's zoom in on something that we feel you should be aware of. There's a potential conflict of interest for Jake Hoffman, a current candidate for Queen Creek Town Council. Here's what happened as we understand it. A year ago, Mr. Hoffman lived in Gilbert where he grew up, and he was serving on the Higley School Board. But suddenly he resigned from the board early and moved to Queen Creek, and announced his intentions to run for Queen Creek's town council. As strange as it is to move to a new town and immediately run for the town council, there's something else you should know. VIP Homes seems to have gone out of their way to help Hoffman move and help him qualify for the ballot. When, as records show, Hoffman listed his Gilbert home, it didn't sell. So he lowered the price, and then he had to lower it again. But then, VIP Homes bought their house from them for close to the original asking price at $268,000. 2 months later, Warren Peterson, son of VIP President Evelyn Peterson, sold the house for VIP at just $243,000. That's a $25,000 loss on that particular transaction. Assuming Hoffman could only have obtained that same sale price, it seems Hoffman received a $25,000 benefit from VIP Homes. Now, to run for town council, Hoffman needed to occupy a residence in Queen Creek for 1 year before the election. Again, VIP Homes helped by getting him into his house before the August deadline, even though his purchase of a VIP home in Queen Creek didn't finally close until September 11th, 2015. So, has anything illegal been done here? So far, no. But let's summarize. A company that is suing the town for millions may have given significant financial and other assistance to a person who, if elected, would be in a position to vote on a possible settlement of that lawsuit. That could be a big conflict of interest. The Public Integrity Alliance feels the public should know about this, and we feel Mr. Hoffman should declare a conflict of interest and promise not to vote on issues relating to VIP homes if he's elected.
Okay. Anyone who has ever bought a home, is this normal? Is it normal to purchase a home and the seller to just give you $25,000 as part of the transaction? Is it normal to allow someone to move into the home before the deal closes? Here is the deed. The deed is dated for September, but they let Jake Hoffman move into the home in August to meet the deadline for the election. Is that normal? To be clear, the lawsuit was eventually thrown out of court and Jake Hoffman never voted on it anyway, so it never really became an issue. But it seems to me like something suspicious is going on. It was during this period that Turning Point moved to Phoenix, Arizona in 2017 to 2018. This was the same period when Jake Hoffman was on the Queen Creek Town Council. Tyler Boyer already had all these connections with powerful politicians in Arizona. This was also the same time Andrew Colvett started with Turning Point. This was also the same time that Erika Kirk met Charlie Kirk. This was also the same time that Jake Hoffman started working with Turning Point doing their marketing. Something else that was happening around the same time was a scandal by Arizona State legislator David Stringer. He served in the House from January 2017 to March 2019 when he resigned in scandal. After he was elected, it was revealed by investigative journalists that he was arrested in 1983 for paying 2 boys under the age of 15 for sex, plus charges for child porn. He pled guilty to the charges and received a plea deal where he never went to prison. Instead, he received 5 years probation. Nobody knew about this because his criminal record had been expunged in 1990. I hate to explain the details here, but I think they are important. Here's a police report with the sex offenses. Here are the police notes describing how he asks the boys for sex. Here are the police notes where he pays the boys $10 apiece. One boy said he continued to see him at least 10 additional times, and each time David Stringer asked him to perform acts of fellatio and sodomy. When all this information came out, everyone was rightfully upset that David Stringer was an Arizona legislator. How is this happening in Arizona? Only a few years earlier, we had Eddie Farnsworth looking out for child sex traffickers by killing a bill. And now we have David Stringer who paid for sex with little boys. Now he resigned, but he has remained active in political circles.
Let me just say, I think you're right. I've been politically involved here in Yavapai County, and we are one of the most conservative counties in the state, I would say.
He has a social media platform where he talks about Arizona politics. I bring all of this up because 6 months ago, Warren Peterson was publicizing his next political race for Arizona Attorney General, and he appeared on a talk show on David Stringer's platform. Now, he was interviewed by someone else, but it was still the show published by David Stringer. So Warren Peterson is still fine associating with this guy. It's like this whole gang of people is okay with child sex traffickers. So Jake Hoffman is now representing Queen Creek. He was on the town council from 2017 to 2020. He was a state legislator from 2021 to 2023. He was a state senator from 2023 until now. Almost a decade, he's been representing Queen Creek. Now, you're going to be surprised to find out that Queen Creek has a problem with child sex trafficking. Queen Creek has 2 boarding schools side by side. Canyon State Academy is for boys, and Desert Lily Academy is for girls. A lot of these kids are juvenile delinquents. A kid will end up in the court system, and a judge will send them to live at Canyon State Academy instead of a full juvenile correction facility. It is also for kids in the foster care system who do not have anywhere to live. These are at-risk youth. Actually, a lot of these kids are sent there from California because it is easier to run these types of facilities in Arizona compared to California.
There have been more than 2,000 calls for service at Canyon State Academy and Desert Lily Academy. Both residential schools are located right next to each other and are owned by the Nevada company Rite of Passage, under contract with DCS. Canyon State is for juvenile boys, while Desert Lily is for girls. Back in 2022, we covered the high number of calls for service and concerns at CSA.
We've learned the Queen Creek Police Department has responded to CSA at a rate of nearly once a day.
By 2024, those calls spiked with 430 at CSA and 306 at DLA. So I sat down with Queen Creek Police Chief Randy Bryce to ask a simple question. Is that too much?
One thing to keep in mind, it's certainly a concentrated number of calls for service, but it's a broad spectrum of calls.
But what has consistently stood out are missing persons calls, especially when kids run away. From January 2024 through December 2025, there were 208 reports for missing boys at Canyon State. During that same time span, 119 calls of missing girls were reported to Queen Creek Police. Between both campuses, that's one child going missing every 2 days.
I want you to understand the extent of the problem. Every other day, a child is going missing from these schools in Queen Creek.
Chief Bryce says some of these runaway cases have evolved into investigations involving trafficking and exploitation. One of these examples comes from QCPD's first year as an agency.
I believe this was in 2022. We found the individual right before the trafficker was going to move them to a different state.
The chief is talking about 31-year-old Wendell White. Court records reveal he organized a scheme to exploit and traffic 3 girls in 2022. They were 14, 16, and 17 at the time and were living at Desert Lily Academy. But before the 14-year-old was placed at DLA, White was her pimp and sex trafficked her to a Phoenix area on 27th Avenue and Indian School Road known as the Blade, a hotbed for prostitution.
A lot of these kids that come into that venue have already been trafficked, or they've had some sort of touch point with trafficking in some form or fashion, so they're high risk.
That girl tried running away from Desert Lily and staff stopped her, but she connected the other 2 minors with White. Those girls ran from Desert Lily to work the Blade for White, provided with drugs and alcohol. Prosecutors say White had sex with all 3 victims. In July 2025, Wendell White was sentenced to 20 years in prison after pleading guilty to child sex trafficking and 2 counts of attempt to commit child sex trafficking. Last year alone, QCPD trafficking detectives located 4 girls who ran away from Desert Lily, believed to be trafficking victims. One of them found in a motel room with 3 men.
If we don't find them within that first few hours, our concern is that they'll be trafficked, and we have to put a lot of resources into solving those quickly.
This is a massive problem. These are facilities full of at-risk kids, and they are basically being used as a smorgasbord where people can walk in and pluck out children they can traffic. They're being brought to downtown Phoenix where they're being sold for sex. You would think that Jake Hoffman would be trying to do something about this. As a legislator, he has oversight over the Arizona Department of Child Safety, which funds these schools. This is his district. But when I look at what he's actually been doing for the last decade, it doesn't look like he cares about stopping child trafficking in his district. And do not think that Jake Hoffman does not know about these academies, because here is a photo of Jake Hoffman at a groundbreaking ceremony for a construction project at Canyon State Academy. This construction project is to create a new building where the public could come in and interact with the students, which in hindsight sounds really creepy. This is where it gets weird, because we have all heard the Republican talking points that the evil Democrat elites are involved in these underground child trafficking networks. With the release of more of the Jeffrey Epstein files, that turns out to be mostly true. But here's the problem. If child trafficking rumors are what Jake Hoffman is running on, why isn't he doing anything about it once he gets into office? When you start looking into what Jake Hoffman is doing, you can understand why nothing changes. He wrote an article where he said this: Democrats are committed to executing a radical open borders agenda that will leave our nation vulnerable to a continued flood of illegal deadly drugs and human and child trafficking. From his perspective, child trafficking is connected to the border issue. He is saying that if you close the border, you stop child trafficking. Now, it is true that there is trafficking at the border, but this completely ignores the child trafficking that is going on in Jake Hoffman's own backyard. He's not addressing that problem at all. It's just like his predecessor, Eddie Farnsworth, who looked the other way when it came to child trafficking. He is doing the same thing. In fact, by shutting down child trafficking at the border, it eliminates the competition and makes homegrown child trafficking even more lucrative. It says almost the exact same quote on the Turning Point website. Human trafficking is rising nationwide. Securing our borders to protect Americans from illegal activity, drugs, and other dangers must be a priority for our representatives. They connect child trafficking to the border, completely ignoring what is happening in places like Canyon State Academy. It's like they're trying to misdirect everyone's attention to the border. So even though Turning Point Republicans have been screaming about child trafficking and raising a lot of money off of child trafficking, they're not actually doing anything to stop it. Jake Hoffman has sponsored a lot of pieces of legislation. He wrote bills about election reform, ending DEI, and the border. But not a single piece of legislation that would have meaningfully reduced trafficking at Canyon State Academy. To be fair to Jake Hoffman, he did co-sponsor SCR 1021, which increased penalties for child sex trafficking. SCR 1021 specified mandatory life sentencing for child sex trafficking, with no chance of parole or plea deals. That sounds good, but let me tell you the problem with this legislation. If the police do not arrest these people, it has absolutely no effect. It doesn't address any of the problems, like taking care of the victims or providing extra police support. This is the whole law. It's just about the penalty. Remember, Jake Hoffman is the guy who hired the police chief. Jake Hoffman is the guy who does not receive speeding tickets. This is not a meaningful attempt to fix the issues. It's window dressing. It's just a Band-Aid that makes the politicians look good, but doesn't actually do anything. The proof of this is this new life imprisonment penalty went into effect in 2024. But according to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, child sex trafficking cases are up 60% over the last few years. It doesn't sound like it is working. The situation gets even more strange when you start looking into these two schools. These schools are being run by a management company called Rite of Passage. It is operated out of a small town called Minden, Nevada, next to Lake Tahoe. If you've never heard of Minden, Nevada, it is because it only has a population of 3,000 people. So why is this small business in Minden, Nevada, operating a school in Arizona for juvenile delinquents? They operate a number of these academies in California and Arizona. They used to operate a maximum security juvenile correction facility in Nevada near Las Vegas, but that was closed in 2015 in a scandal. The CFO of Rite of Passage is Carolyn Boyer. I don't think this is any relation to Tyler Boyer. The name is spelled differently. She has been the CFO since 2003. That is the first fiscal year that she signed their 990 form. So she's been the CFO at the small juvenile detention company for 24 years. That's pretty unusual. It's common to see CFOs make career changes throughout their career, unless there's some reason that makes it lucrative for them to stay. This also reminds me of something else. In my previous video, I mentioned that Tyler Boyer had this strange home purchase. He bought a $1.95 million mansion in 2021, right around the same time period that Jake Hoffman created 110 LLC in Delaware. This is right before Kari Lake gave $2.3 million to 110 LLC. Well, it turns out that Jake Hoffman also purchased a $1 million mansion around this same time period. Just to recap, Jake Hoffman's suspicious home purchase in 2015 from VIP Homes was a house in Queen Creek worth $326,000. Then December 2019, Jake Hoffman buys a mansion worth $1.14 million. This was roughly 1 year before forming 110 LLC in Delaware. How does this guy go from being a fitness instructor next to a prison to living in a $1 million mansion? And it just happens to be at the same time that Tyler Boyer is buying his magnificent mansion. This looks to me to be very suspicious. Now, I might have been able to overlook all of this information, except for what Jake Hoffman has been doing recently. The current governor of Arizona is a Democrat named Katie Hobbs, who was announced as the winner of the election against Kari Lake. When a new governor comes into office, they appoint the heads of all the state agencies, which have to be confirmed by the state Senate. Jake Hoffman was the chair of the Senate committee to confirm these appointments, and he turned this into a major battle. This was not unexpected, but the way he went about it is very strange. The agency that he targeted first was the Department of Child Safety. This is the department that sends funds to Canyon State Academy and Desert Lily Academy. Out of all the state agencies, why did he target this one first? Katie Hobbs appointed a black man named Matthew Stewart to lead the agency. Jake Hoffman opposed this because he claimed Matthew Stewart was only being hired for DEI. Jake Hoffman claimed that Matthew Stewart was not qualified and was only being hired because he was black. But I looked into Matthew Stewart's background, and that's not true. Matthew Stewart had more than a decade of experience working for the Department of Child Safety, including being a supervisor and a case manager. He had hands-on experience dealing with child cases. This is not someone with no qualifications. In fact, in my opinion, this looks like someone who could have brought in a fresh perspective and real reforms to the agency. But Jake Hoffman did not want that for some reason. Jake Hoffman blocked the confirmation, forcing the governor to fire Matthew Stewart and get somebody else. This went on for years. The governor took office in January 2023. Jake Hoffman did not agree to a confirmation until Catherine Patak was named the new director in January 2025. That is 2 years that the Department of Child Safety was in chaos without a leader. So when we go back to that news story about a child going missing every other day from these academies, Jake Hoffman is partly responsible for that because of the chaos he created at the Department of Child Safety. And listen to this. The person Jake Hoffman finally agreed to confirm was Catherine Patak. She was the general counsel at the Department of Child Safety. And in the confirmation hearing, Jake Hoffman was reported as giving his reason for selecting Catherine Patak because she would deliver consistent and reliable operations. He liked her because she would continue the status quo. He did not want the guy who actually had the experience dealing with the children and instead selected the lawyer who wouldn't change anything. This is getting really creepy and sinister. Jake Hoffman has these academies where a student is going missing every other day, and the type of management he wants to continue is the status quo. He wants consistent and reliable operations. Now, to be clear, I do not have any evidence that Jake Hoffman is personally involved in trafficking these children. But this is a legitimate criticism. Jake Hoffman has to explain his legislative record. Why does he continue to look the other way on the issue of child sex trafficking? Just like his buddy, Eddie Farnsworth, who blocked the child sex trafficking bill. Just like his buddy, Warren Peterson, who is associating with David Stringer, who paid for sex with boys. Just like Erika Kirk with her shady background. Jake Hoffman has been in leadership positions in Queen Creek for a decade. Why has he not addressed the child sex trafficking going on in his own district? He has to answer for this. And that brings me to the other member of this gang of people. The other person who was there at the beginning when Jake Hoffman made the deal to drop out of the race in 2012 was U.S. Representative Andy Biggs. He recently announced that he is running for governor of Arizona in 2026. Do you understand what is happening here? This same gang of people is going to use Turning Point money to try to take control of Arizona. I wonder what's going to happen to the children at Canyon State Academy. I hope the people who are donating money to Turning Point realize that these are the people you are sending money to. I've shown you the facts. You can go look them up for yourself. I've shown you a number of situations with Jake Hoffman that seem pretty shady. So I think I am absolutely justified in raising questions of financial mismanagement and potential fraud at Turning Point. Why are they sending millions of dollars to this UPS store mailbox for Jake Hoffman? A lot of Republicans are upset that I'm making these videos exposing Turning Point. But if you are a Republican, You really need to ask yourself one simple question. Do you really want control of the Republican Party to be in the hands of Tyler Boyer, Jake Hoffman, and their UPS store mailbox? Because that is what they're trying to do. I don't think that's the Republican Party that you want. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think that more should be done to help the children in Arizona? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. If you want to support independent journalism like this channel, consider signing up for a membership on my website, wolvesandfinance.com. For $6 a month, your support helps me to keep making these videos. Thank you to everyone who has signed up. I'm Zach from Wolves and Finance. Thank you for watching.